Voila. And with that, a very warm welcome once more to our third AMA call on Appreciative Inquiry and Leadership with Joep de Jong. Today in a very cozy setting with Reto as our guest, which I very much like. Welcome, Reto, and also welcome, Joep.
Thank you. I'm a little bit distracted. I mean, the 19 people did show up, but in actually a different format. I have about 19 birds, quite literally, I haven't counted them, but close to about 19 birds, very close around me. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yes.
And they are all listening. They're sitting on chairs and on the floor. They're apparently very intelligent creatures. Beautiful. Okay, having said that.
Very good. And actually, so what we follow that format just as we've done with the first two AMA calls. So the idea is that we do a quick check-in, and I guess we're going to do that just with the three of us today here right now for about max 10 minutes, something like that. And then we kickstart with the question of Nadia from last call, which we couldn't answer. She was asking, what does an appreciative inquiry intervention in a real life situation look like? And then Reto, if you have any other question to Reto, to yourself, yeah, of course, to yourself as well, if you want to, or to Joep or to me, then we are happy to answer that. And well, we'll take it as long as we want to, and maximum 1 hour. So at 7 o'clock, we're about to close it. And before, I'm just going to share a little bit about events that are coming up. And maybe also, actually, I'm going to include the AI Jam, which might be interesting as well, because you're here as well as from the European Appreciative Inquiry community. And then we enjoy the rest of our evenings offline or
marvelous.
Okay,
what a privilege.
Great.
What a privilege to be here.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? That's
You know, it's so intimate. It's so cozy, actually, to be just with you two. And it's a special day for me because I was just in with a brunch with my sister-in-law who lost her husband. My brother would have been 69 yesterday, and
wow.
we came together now, and I wanted to be here in this meeting, despite the fact that we have first focused national anniversary. So it's a triple gift. National anniversary, being in the brunch, and being with you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Reto. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I bought the book of Nadia, actually. So,
good choice. Good choice.
Yes, actually, I have to say, I appreciate her way of communicating. And parallel to that, I also bought the book of on leadership and healing with an author called Yanni, I believe. He's going to be in Oberursel mid of January with Matthias zu Bonsen and colleagues. You probably know the circle as well. Never heard?
No, but we know Oberursel pretty well.
Yes. But Matthias zu Bonsen, since I believe about 25 years, sets up a weekend, Sunday and Monday, with coaches, actually. And I attended for about maybe half a dozen or so. So
wow.
If you're interested in hearing more, of course, I'm here.
Good, nice. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And you, how are you checking in?
I'm checking in actually from a good place. I moved to the boat now. This is going to be. I'm there now for what is it? A month and a half, and I'm starting to find what I was looking for, in the sense of the peace, and still work is coming. Yesterday I got a request whether I would have days available for. I first misread it. I thought, well, September is going to be very busy, but it was to September 2024. So that is good. So I like being on the boat, although the weather has not been very kind, but it's really good. I mean, the weather is what it's supposed to be, and I like that. The one thing that does keep me busy and is that some of my friends are not doing too well. Vera, you know about Walt Hopkins, who was suffering of dementia, and apparently I'm one of the few people he trusts, to the extent that he asked me to come down and help him work through some of the things that he wants to close down. And I unfortunately I see that with more people in my environment, and I struggle a bit with that. But I guess particularly as I'm doing so well, and I feel like doing so well and enjoying almost every step of what I'm doing.
You're currently now on the boat.
Currently I'm close to the beach because the network connection on the boat isn't too good. So I decided to this morning to try out some of the sites. So I had several coffees and and stuff like that, and I enjoy that very much. And I found this place is quite a nice place, and I can sit outside here and I hear the waves. And I was a little bit worried that the flags would bother with the sound, but it's apparently Vera said that's okay, and so I'm doing well. And there is John.
And there's John. And Sami is coming as well. What a joy.
Yeah.
Hello, Sami. Good to have you here. We're just about to check in. Hello.
Hi. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too. We are a very cozy group today. So we thought we'd do the check-in in the main group and not in breakout sessions. Joep and Reto have already checked in. And if you want to, you can just kind of check in as well, if you feel like it. Just saying how you're landing in our online space here together.
Thank you. As well meeting Mr. Jong and continue gaining from his wealth of expertise in appreciative inquiry.
All right. So you know John Ratchelder?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful.
I'm trying to get my video on my camera.
Let me see what I can help you actually. I can ask you to put it on. Does that work?
Nope.
No. Well, then maybe we don't have you with the camera to tell. That's then just the way it is. That's okay.
Well,
do you want to share with us how you are landing in the space? Without picture, we see that, but apart from that, how are you landing here?
well, I'm following Joep and you at LinkedIn, and I've also had the honor to get a degree in Appreciative Inquiry. Well, a degree, I have a certificate that I followed that at KSU Western University. And sometimes in my project and change programs, I use Appreciative Inquiry. That's it. But I can't. I'm annoyed that my camera isn't working.
Well, you keep on struggling if you want to, and then I'll use the time right now here to check in myself. So I'm doing very well. Now the sun is actually coming out. We had a pretty rainy day here apart from that, and which is okay, which is welcome, because it gives me reasons to stay inside and behind the computer, because I've been last week in Crete and it was just stunningly beautiful. It was so beautiful. I've been invited there from a colleague, and who said that she would love to well, get me actually for another approach, which is called source and money work, get me into a project with a client of hers that didn't go through, but we kept in contact and decided that we want to start collaborating and creating a package ourselves for our clients. And we actually started with something that should be online and very small, something about resilience and resilient organizations and all that kind of good stuff. And then I asked her actually an appreciative inquiry question on the first morning when we were sitting in a cafe, saying like, okay, so if you would allow yourself to dream wildly, what would you like to create together? And then it became like, from this small online package being like a gigantic package on leadership, which I'm so much looking forward to co-creating with her, which is going to be one kickoff week in Crete because she's living there. And then a 6-month online journey where we pack in all our stuff. She has beautiful things in her suitcase and toolkit, and I have beautiful stuff in my toolbox. And then we make the best for our participants. And I'm very much looking forward to that. And I've been so much with her in that rabbit hole, like getting into that I really had not time for anything else but creating that together with her, or starting to create that together with her. So it's good that it rained just yesterday and today, because I needed to catch up with a few things in order to be here with you today. So I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm very much happy to be here with you. And for the two of you who just joined a little later, let me repeat a little bit once more what the procedure is for what we're going to do today. So we just checked in right now. And now we're going to start with, we start the AMA part, so the Ask Me Anything part, and we start with one question of Nadia Taranchevsky, which we couldn't address last time in the second AMA call. And she was asking, what does an appreciative inquiry intervention in a real life situation actually look like? And so I'll give, in a moment, I give the word to Joep. I'm going to pin him as well to share his answer and on that. And then after he has been answering that, you're obviously free to ask any questions that you have on appreciative inquiry, appreciative leadership, or any other area where you think Joep is an expert in. About 7 minutes to the end. So right now, about 40 minutes to go. Is that true? No, about 35 minutes to go. I'm gonna share a little bit about upcoming events, both of Joep and me, as well as in the European Appreciative Inquiry field, that I think might be of interest for those of, you all have been obviously signing up. So I'm also going to share them in a follow-up mail, so you don't have to write them with you. If you find that interesting, you get that also in a written form. And then we hug each other goodbye, and it's going to be over. So that's the procedure for the next 40 minutes. And if there are any questions on the structure of what we're going to do. Am I there again? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I lost you there for
Internet
a second.
connection is not stable.
Next.
I guess that's really the sign that I should hand over to Joep. Like, really. So with that, I'm going to pin Joep, and I'm going to give you the stage, and would love you to share about the question of Nadia, which is, what does an appreciative inquiry intervention in a real life situation look like?
Thank you, Vera, and once more welcome to all of you. I guess I really, in a way, I struggled with Nadia's question, not because it's really a difficult question, but there are so many examples that I could share. I mean, I've been using appreciative inquiry for such a long time that there are many examples. But what I I was actually writing today to this friend that Vera mentioned, where she was on Crete, and I guess my first 4 or 5 years with Appreciative Inquiry were, as I guess with many people who get to learn it, is that they are using it as a consultant, as a trainer, as a coach, and I had been doing that as well. And the interesting thing is that at least I have many good stories about that. I really enjoyed that. But to me, the path with regards to appreciative leadership and appreciative inquiry took a different twist when I became, in 1998, the second half of that year, I became one of the executives at Syntegra. Syntegra, just to say a few words about that, used to be an experiment by British Telecom, who in the 90s thought that just being a telco would not be enough. They wanted to look at IT, and for that they set up, amongst others, Syncordia and Syntegra, which, as said, were experiments, but quite large experiments, and they bought other companies for that. And so when in 1998, I was approached by a former colleague at Apple who worked there as well. His name was Rob Pauls, and he asked me to come and have dinner with him. And when I was there, it became clear that his purpose was to ask me to join Syntegra. And I was kind of hesitant. I had my own organization, quite successful. And but then he said to me the magic words, wouldn't it be nice to do what we did at Apple? And we were quite successful, but then even better. And I fell for that. So I decided to join them. But part of the process was that I also had to speak with the HR manager in the UK. And her name was Jenny Clark. Not that is very relevant, but Syntegra had 5 divisions, and one was a training, learning and development division, for which I was asked. And when I spoke to her, and I always stressed that she didn't say this literally, but she said, "Mr. de Jong, we want you to fix, sell, or kill this unit because it was not going too well." And that doesn't sound very appreciative. I'm very much aware, particularly the last 2 options. But the unit wasn't doing too well, and so I was asked to start working there, and I agreed. We reached this agreement, and there I'm not very good at killing. As a human being, I'm not very good at that. I mean, I have difficulties even killing a bug, so that was not really an option. Selling, I figured, was the easy way out. But what would happen if you would fix it? What could fix it? Now, just to give you a little bit of background, it was a substantial unit, several hundred people. It exploited more than 45 classrooms, did quite a bit of training for large organizations, and still they were not doing well. And the late 90s was already, a challenging time for training institutes. And there were some other things. There was a really very big management team. As I said, it was a group of several hundred people, but they had a management team, I think, of 11 or 12 people. I don't exactly recall. It is, by the way, written up in a book by Jane Watkins and Bernard Moore. But so there were also some structural things, and the group was what is called bleeding. And by bleeding, I mean there was money was going out faster than it was coming in. And I figured that the traditional ways of change would not work, whereby one of the boundaries that was given to me was that I could do pretty much everything I wanted, but I could not fire the sales manager, and I could not fire the manager on operations. who were actually not liking each other. So I trust I have pictured quite a complicated situation. And I guess I figured I might use appreciative inquiry to learn about what works, because even in that situation, things were working. I mean, several hundred people were coming to work every day. We were serving clients, although clients were not very, very happy right away. I mean, I was there and I was saying it was bleeding, just to give you to picture how grim it was, and where you, well, in the end, appeared to be able to use appreciative inquiry. But to give you another example of how grim the situation was, our largest client was Bosch, a well-known organization, and we were a subcontractor to Bosch, dealing with with a very large project on security for the Dutch Defense Ministry of Defense. And the situation was actually so bad that I was there for a month, and I was summoned by the project leader of that project, and he was quite straightforward. He said, "Mr. Jong, I want you to come because we need to talk how we can end the contract with Syntegra in a way that will do justice to you not performing very well and still continue this project to continue." And I, knowing that appreciative inquiry is about stories, our best stories, and about relationship, and identified together with people from Syntegra, and actually I also asked 2 external people that I knew who were familiar with appreciative inquiry to help me as well, to find what are actually the themes that we want to address and share the stories about. And I guess that one of the fortunate things, is it was part of a British company where the boss is the boss. So I was positioned as the leader, and as it was not going well, people were open to new approaches. Not everyone, but there was certainly a willingness to try something new. And so I guess within the first month, we identified some themes. And some of the themes that we identified was several. It was customer relations. It was cooperation, the cooperation between the sales and the training staff, which was, I mean, there were words and phrases used like the sales group thought that all the other groups were what I called SOTs, sales obstruction teams. So there was a lot of frustration, but so we looked into cooperation, and we looked at what it might mean to work for the best organization you can dream of. So I remember that our first event took place within 2 months, I think, around these themes. And the wealth of information that came out of these themes created really a very positive wave of good energy. And I guess the interesting thing for me was that I could respond, and this is again different than when you are a consultant, but I could respond to the reactions and to what people really wanted. So to give you an example of that, there was a group of people said, well, you know, we are really enthusiastic about this. How can we learn more? So I did send a group of people to some AI training. I think it was in the UK, and you also make mistakes in such a process, because they were so enthusiastic that they came back, and you had at the time in the late 90s, you had this TV series called Charlie's Angels, and they wanted to call themselves, or they called themselves, the AI Angels. And I was very much in the sphere of, okay, anything you want is okay, but I don't think that really worked very well. So I think later we changed it, but it was the enthusiasm of people that got to that point. So we continued to work on these themes based on these questions and the answers that came, and try to iterate and reiterate what we found. Which I mean, this is why the story to me was very interesting, and still is very interesting. Is that in your enthusiasm about stories, you may want to continue with the storytelling, but there can be too much of that. So this is where I found what I called story fatigue. Is when you don't dose it enough, then when you don't, there is not a proper amount of it, and there is too much of it, then it, I guess, becomes less attractive. It doesn't give the energy that you want. So you have to use the proper doses, so to speak. And so what I came to do was to have a major event every year, and we played with it. So we start to introduce music, and set some of the themes to music, and the stories to music, and the outcomes to music. And we created special interest groups, thought leader groups, around themes that really emerged as as giving energy. And I guess as I always say, this does not come always easy, and it sometimes really requires some I would say serious actions. And to give you an example of one of those serious actions is that at one stage the sales manager said, I mean, I like you, but I think this methodology is not right for us. And this is where you can have a conversations, which I had with her, but in the end we had to decide that it would be better to split. And so she left, and I found another sales manager. So I mean, it does not always come with with only good news. It requires some real actions, traditional leadership actions. But what remains is trying to stay in relation, and it's continuing with the stories, and it's continuing this search. This, I've spoken before about being lovingly curious. This curiosity about what is possible. So just to give you another example, and then I'll kind of wrap up and see if there are any additional questions around this, is that we were in a situation, as said, which was really challenging. And one of the questions I mentioned that I think earlier already was about the future. What would be the company you really wanted to work for, and what would be the best company we could be? Was looking at the strengths that you have, but then both from a people as well as an organizational perspective. So what we did is we had actually an AI intervention around that question, and we came to the conclusion that we're working for one of the best telco network companies in the world. And this group had such a passion and expertise when it came to training and learning and development. Now, if you can imagine, I mean, this is more than 20 years ago, but it was at the time that e-learning was, it was talked about, but it was not anything big or important. but we came with the notion that e-learning might be one of the ways to go. And when you have this passion, when you have this real drive, and the skills are there, and you then start to take that serious and work with it, really magical things can happen. And the magical thing that I want to share is that within 5 years after I joined, and we started to talk about these possibilities, we won the largest e-learning order assignment in Europe. And yes, of course, that there is maybe things like luck, being at the right place at the right time, but you don't win the largest e-learning assignment in Europe for nothing, and you don't get the trust from a client that then says, we understand that this is going to take time, and we'll award you a 10-year contract, which we got, and which I still consider, well, sometimes I consider it a miracle. I can explain it in hindsight. And it was brought about because we not only shared our best stories, we believed in it, and we created the capability. We invested in people, in the internal knowledge. So it was not me as the AI expert guru, but it was actually, we built a fundament on people that said, hey, if we do this, we create a better environment. And the interesting thing was that when after 5 years, we did an assessment also with the other divisions of Syntegra. We were very successful. We had a lower sick leave rate. We had a lower turnover of people. So there were several things, and in terms of employee satisfaction, we rated higher. And to me, I mean, this story illustrates the power of appreciative inquiry, but you do need to follow up. So it was not a one-time event. We choose for appreciative inquiry as an approach that we said, okay, combined with some of the traditional decision-making things that you need to do. I mean, streamline the management team. I guess one of the first things we did was streamline the management team and say, what are the core functions that need to be seen in this group? We did stop the bleeding, so we looked at projects that lost a lot of money and said, well, we can't afford those anymore. But then looking at the best stories, looking at the power and the skills of the people, and building on that, created, I think, the success that we were able to carry forward, and that actually created this gigantic win. So, having said that, I guess it's probably a good moment to see if there are any questions around this, and if this makes any sense. Well, it is a real story, so I don't know whether that is a good question, but nevertheless.
Thank you. I will leave the floor in a moment to anyone who has a question specifically to what you've been just sharing. I just also want to already prepare you that I love the story that you just shared, and I love that you shared a story also from a perspective of a leader and a manager in a company who turned things around with the help of AI, and seeing that the question came from Nadia, who is, well, she is also leading a company, but it's a very small company. But she probably would have been also very much interested in the perspective of a facilitator who comes in from the external space and who would work as a consultant or as a facilitator for that. I would love if you could share a case as well from that perspective. But let's see first whether there's any other question. I'm sorry, there's some noise in the background from traffic, but I hope he's going to go in a second. So let's see whether there is any other question related to the story that you just shared. So I'm going to unpin us, and I'm going to have a look at the larger space. So, and John managed to have on his video, which is lovely. Great, wonderful, John. So yeah, are there any questions regarding that specific case?
Well, actually, Joep, How did you start? You were just on your own in transforming this group at the beginning, or had you had a group of people, internal and external, supporting you, or and putting all the people together to really grasp the positive stories?
Now, right, this has been, I would say, the story of the story of my life when it comes to being an appreciative leader, both with Syntegra, BT, and later with Van Hart and Linksma. And actually at my last company where I was the CEO, when I joined, and during the first management team meeting, this is actually the very first management team meeting, I was, and I've always been like parachute, you know, so it was not like a democratic process. A shareholder said, or like in this case, I meant this lady, Jenny Clark, and management team said, well, this is going to be your new boss. But to give you the illustration of the where I became CEO of Van Hart and Linksma, actually in the first management team meeting, the guy who had been there for a long time said, Mr. de Jong, we know you love this appreciative inquiry stuff. I've read a little bit about it. I just want to inform you, we don't do that here. And I said, well, it's fine. We'll do whatever you want to do, but tell me the best story about what you're doing and how you do it. And so when I came to Syntegra, there was actually nobody who knew about appreciative inquiry, apart from the fact that I shared with both the operations manager and the sales manager, and I explained to them what AI was, that I was going to use that approach because I didn't believe in killing the unit, I didn't believe in selling it, and I wanted to fix it. But I believe that would be the way to fix it, well, I guess basically that was it. And then when we did the first intervention, which I said was within a month, or maybe 2 months, but within the first 2 months, you have this curve of people who say, okay, don't really care. I've seen so many approaches. There is a group who say, oh, okay, this was nice. It certainly was better than what we have done so far. And there is this small group who say, I love it. I want to do more. This is this group that became the AI angels, and later we changed that, but who I sent to training, because you really in a larger organization need to find those pockets where people will actively support. I mean, you cannot do that as a manager leader yourself. Yeah. And of course, there are you can give, let's say, the example by living it. So one of the first things I did in my office was turn the organogram upside down and show that. I made it an issue that every new employee had to come and visit me when they did their introduction round, because I wanted to see them, know them. And Reto, it also created some I was very much aware, it also created some confusion. They had, to give you an example, they had a quality process. And whenever you were asked to go to your manager or to the executive, to the director as me, and it was about quality, it was actually always because you had done something wrong. So you were asked and told, and I said, it's great, but what about sharing the best stories about quality? So I asked people to come up with great examples. And the first time I had an employee, or the first few times I had an employee, they were almost scared. And I said, but don't worry, I'm actually here to thank you. And I want to hear your story about why you did so well. And actually, by the way, here is a bottle of wine or another gift I want to give you because it's so much appreciated what you're doing. But that's why I thought this story was I like the story myself because it is so different from this intervention as a consultant, which I will get to Vera later, and I have many good stories about that as well. But this is with the challenges where the rubber really meets the road. I hope that answers your question, Rachel.
Yes, it does. Actually, I mean, maybe the short answer to the question Nadezhda had was read the book Conversations Worth Having.
Yeah.
in a small environment, whereas now you're playing the big theme, the big game, actually, with a lot of adverse people, and there to get in with positivity is much more difficult.
Yes, it is. It is.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm gonna unpin you, and I'm gonna ask into the group whether Sami or John has any other question concerning that topic that Joep was just talking about. And John, you just had it. I'm gonna put you here as well, and I'm gonna leave you the space.
There I am. What I'm curious about, Joep, is that you were saying that not everybody is convinced about AI. And when you're talking about it, people have different kind of reactions. I can tell you something about how I work with reactions who are neutral or negative. What do you do with those people?
I guess what I do, this then maybe also moves a little bit to what Vera was asking, that in which Nadia might have pointed out, is that I usually, one way or another, point out that we are all great at storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter who you have. When you look at birthdays, when you look at the pub, when you look at, we are great storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
All of us. And some
Mm-hmm. people
say, well, I'm not a storyteller, but when you, so I guess sometimes it is about trying to find the link to what people are enthusiastic about.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that is a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that is it's something like soccer, or it's, I don't know, car racing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There is always something that I think people are enthusiastic about, what they
Mm-hmm.
love,
Mm-hmm.
and so to me that is the one thing. And I say you don't have to really get involved in this process, but do share the stories. And I must say, do share a story from that perspective that you like, and if you don't want to talk about the theme of leadership, but you believe in something else. I mean, I once had somebody who loved pigeons, and he said the only thing I'm enthusiastic about is my children. So, well, share a great story about your children, or how you are leading. Actually, he was the chair of a pigeon keeping organization. So, what I have done, John, and I'm very curious to hear what you do, but is relating to this element of storytelling. And then I also allow people to say, just think about the storytelling and nothing more. You don't have to go through a whole process. We'll see what happens. So I leave. I think I give people the space. And yes, I do believe that we all have some enthusiasm for something. So that's how I do that.
That's always the case, I think.
Yeah. So so just very briefly, how about you? How do you do that?
Well, what I do is, you just mentioned the AI angels.
Yeah.
And I got that, and I know where David Cooper got the approach of AI. It's a very old approach.
Yeah.
It's among us for about 1,000 of years, and that is what I think is the reason why we are on Earth, to be free of fear and to have a creative life. And there was a guy who walked about 2,000 years ago on this Earth, and he did the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
He did exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But what I've done is, and now I'm doing change and project for about 30 years. And then you meet people who are afraid or have their life wasn't always successful. And then I ask them, where do you look at? Do you look at what wasn't successful, or do you look what was successful? And what was successful, which qualities did you use? How did you
Yeah.
use them? And how can you now these qualities? How can they help you to be a part of the change? And that's it.
Exactly, John. And I guess that is, I mean, this is exactly the story that I mentioned about the person when I had the first management meeting at Van Harte Linksma, who said we don't use AI. And I guess I had the sense, the common sense to say, you don't have to, but you have been using something else. I knew they had been working with Ruth Cohn and an approach there. He said, well, tell me a story how that works, and a great story. Why are you using that? And then he got into a mode of why that was so important and why it was working. I said, and then the energy goes into a direction that people are opening up to sharing, because it at the end is all about relationships.
Always central.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. I've made a model, and I've used also the books of Nadia, Appreciative Inquiry, and there's in German a really good book that's called Wertschätzung, and it tells about 3 stages of your mind: being in red, being in yellow, and being in green, whatever that is. And I've made a model, and I've also worked out how you go into the red zone, where it is not okay to be there. I call that the demon part, and the other part I call the angel part. So when you use the word angel, I got you. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
John, were you referring to the book of Stefan Josef Dick and his wife and Gertrud Wicks?
Ich glaube ja.
Okay.
I have to look at it.
That's that's an interesting one.
Give
Indeed,
someone else
because
the opportunity to talk.
Reto has been a colleague of them, that he's been working with Gertrud quite a bit. So this is how our circles are closing now, which is funny.
Yes, I actually coached them that the book would appear.
Beautiful. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Beautiful. And that maybe is a beautiful way to kind of bring us to the last part of our AMA call today, because it's already 7 minutes to 7. Time is flying, which is crazy.
And then Vera, just before you do that, I commit to then thinking of a story the next time to address possibly Nadia's question around what happens when you do this from a consultancy or an OD expert perspective.
And who knows, exactly. And who knows, maybe Nadia is going to show up exactly then. So she's just getting the right story at the right time. So I guess
very good.
Kind of divine timing in that respect. So wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And before we're going to close and hug each other farewell in a virtual way, I want to share a few invitations. Number one, the very first one. is the next AMA call is going to be not at the first Tuesday of the month anymore, because there is another monthly meeting that is coming up on my side, so I cannot host it at that time slot anymore, but it's going to be the 4th Thursday, I think, if I remember right. Anyway, this time it's going to be the 26th of September from 6 to 7 p.m. CET. So the time remains the same, but the day changes, and you're warmly invited to join. The link to register here right now, just ignore it for a moment, because I have not put up the new dates yet, but I'm going to do that right after our call. So, and they're going to be in the follow-up mail, so you don't have to worry about that one. And the next thing that I would love to share is that if you have resources, just as the one that John was pointing out right now, please share them either here in the chat. I'm going to save the chat and put that into the follow-up mail, or you send it to me via email. I'm happy to share that in the follow-up mail. And one of the things that Joep and I do for the people who are in Germany or who'd love to travel to Germany in August still, we are hosting 2 workshops. It's a workshop series in German language, whereby it might be that actually one person from Ukraine is coming and joining. So then it's going to be a bilingual one. It's called In Flow, and it's basically for entrepreneurs or people who are in a very proactive role, in a way leaders. They might not be in a management role, but leaders, and who feel that they are called to take care of our social fabric or the planet itself. And we help them both with AI and with an approach that is called money and source work, which is also in, well, you all know Nadia by now. Nadia is hosting again her AMA calls, whereby I don't have the time right now, so I might look that up and put it in here as well. But she's hosting AMA calls with Peter Koenig on source and money work. Very interesting and very worth coming to. So the next one is of that community as well. So the community around Peter Koenig, which I'm part of as well. This first salon event that I'm going to host, this is going to be a lingual event. So it's going to be in English, German, French. And that's going to be in October, from the 5th to the 7th of October in Dresden. This is a series of events which is going to move to different places. The first one is going to be in Dresden, the next one close to Berlin, and I guess the one after that maybe already in a different country, probably the Netherlands. If that's interesting to you, have a look on the website and sign up for either the newsletter, which is not here right now, but happy to share more about that as well in the mail. But let me also close with one that is concerning the whole global big AI world. This is the AI Jam, which is a format that they are hosting now, I think for the 3rd or 4th time. It comes from the David Cooperrider Center. Jessica Blackman and Lindsay Godwin are in charge of it. Joep and I have been local hosts last year, and they are actually looking for local hosts again this year. So if you feel called to either be a local host, so to host for a small community, the AI Jam, which is a virtual event in your region, then they are very happy and curious to hear about that. And if you want to submit a session proposal, which has to do anything with AI, and I think this year's topic is cultivating connections, from the October 19th to 21, then this is your opportunity. And the link to that, let me have a look, because it didn't come up with the link here right now. That is then here, Google Forums. I'm going to put that right underneath into the chat as well. Here we go. And there you can submit a proposal if you feel like it. And with that, we're 1 minute to 7. We're perfectly timed. We are very German today again. I invite you to unmute yourself and to find a person next to you in the tile and to tickle him on his head, or to shake him the hand, or whatever you feel like doing, and to shout your goodbye. And I wish you a very happy rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Joep. Have a
Thank you.
nice day.
Bye.
Vera, John, Reto, all of you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
You
Yeah.
too.
It's dark here. We are already in the evening. Take care.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.